Welcome to the show. We talk about many topics on this program, and I try to make you aware of lifestyle changes you can make to live a healthier life. One thing that I constantly remind you of is getting regular exercise. Why? Because it's that important to your well-being. Physical activity or exercise will improve your health. It will also reduce the risk of developing several diseases like type 2 diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. It can help with your emotional frame of mind, like fighting of depression. Physical activity and exercise can have immediate and long-term health benefit. Most importantly, regular activity can improve your quality of life. I often hear the same excuses as to why someone can get in their regular exercise. Well, guess what? The excuses stop today. We are going to discuss type of exercise you can utilize to build up your own program to live healthier and better. We are at Fitness for All today, so let's have a look around to get you started. Welcome to Time Waits for No One. Today we are going to focus on exercise. We talk about it, we ask everyone to do it, we talk to them about doing it on a regular basis, how important for their health, for their fitness, and important to stick to it and do it on a regular basis for long term. So today we are going to talk to the expert from Fitness for All, Keith Zoller, who is a private trainer and who is the owner of the Fitness for All, to give us enough information and explanation about exercise and about the best way we can do it and the safest way we can do it. Welcome on our show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So, exercise. Tell us what kind of exercise we have and what is the best way to do it.
Well, there's a lot of different type of exercises, and it really depends on what type of exercise you want to apply to what person you're actually working with, or actually if they're working out on their own, where they're at in the beginning stages, or if they're in a sports or injury related.
Yeah.
And that's where you apply the different type of exercises. And
okay.
As you grow into different exercises too, that's where it changes up.
Okay. So when we are talking about someone who just wants to start exercise, what is the best exercise for them?
Well, first off, the basic. Everybody's more worried about trying to do something that they've either saw on TV or they've saw someone else do, or they come in and they're kind of lost, and then they're going from machine to machine to machine. Well, what happens is sometimes that's where you get your injury to play in effect because you're doing it incorrectly.
Okay.
Or you're also trying to overload and overdo too much at one time.
Absolutely. So, and what about, I mean, I read basically there is some exercise, we call it endurance exercise, strength exercise, balance exercise, and flexibility. Can you give us just a little bit idea about each one of them?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, okay, so endurance. Endurance is, you know, it's one of those that plays in a factor to everything about you. So it's called like losing weight or your cardio, and also building muscle activity during the time you're doing it. So endurance is more when you're keeping it at a load at a longer period of time.
Sure.
And it's, again, something that you want to ease into, especially if you were just starting into it, Doc. You would definitely want to do less of your endurance training and more of your basic, just generalized weight training or muscle activity to get things started.
I see. What about strength exercise? That's a muscle...
Strength is as important, and that's one thing in all the years I've been doing this, I think it's the most important, Doc,
okay.
because it applies to everyone. And when you say strength, everybody uses that as a power word, and they're more worried about how much weight they can use, which a lot of even the bigger guys and stuff, you know, they're trying to move up the racks and do everything incorrectly. It's more about just isolation, squeezing, contracting, but getting the mind to connect to the muscle while you're doing it.
Absolutely. And balance?
Balance. Balance is huge, because balance is the part that I see more than anything walking around the gym and also with working with people and athletes and else, it's imbalances. Because over time, the body adjusts to whatever's strong. So what happens is the most active muscles or the most dominant muscles continue to take over. So over time, they get worked more, they grow more, the weaker spots get weaker, and that's where your injuries come into effect too.
And flexibility?
Flexibility is huge. So flexibility is one of those things, it's kind of like everybody gets again into the, I hate to say the word, but meat and potatoes of it, the big part of it, and they forget to do the flexibility part. But what happens is over time, it causes the body to contract, get tighter, more stressed areas, and it plays a part in it too.
So is the sequence of these exercises, the 4 exercises, it has to be done with the endurance and end up with the flexibility, or you can mix it
I'd start with the strength training first, so you can get the person adjusted to being strong enough to do some endurance training. Because a lot of times people want to jump right into, you know, like the boot camp style or the Orange Series type or the cardio type. And what happens is a lot of times your body is getting more injury because you're putting stress in the parts that are already stronger, and the weaker parts are actually getting the stress part.
Absolutely. Now, what about age? Now, you know, the elderly people probably, they are not the same like the younger people who can do more aggressive exercise. Is the same type of exercise is applicable for them?
Absolutely not. And so what happens is with the elderly people, the biggest thing is to get movement again.
Sure.
A lot of times too, and even with trainers, I've seen this over the years, they are actually putting more hurt on the person than they are helping the person, because they're trying to do exercises that would be generalized towards someone else that they're training instead of applying it to the person, just so they can actually get their body acclimated again to do an activity and also the muscle to come to life. So now they have the support system.
Now, based on this, and you emphasize on how important to avoid injuries, what is the most common injuries you see in the people when they start exercising? I'm talking about not the people who are experienced in exercise. I'm talking about the people who are coming to you and say, I want to exercise and I can do this, and probably I can jump on the treadmill. And how safe and why it's important not to?
That's a great question. And the reason why I say great question is a lot of people are injury related in their shoulders, hips, knees, because those are your stress points.
Absolutely.
And usually those are the areas that get more of a load during the exercise movements that they're doing and the cardio stuff, and also with the weight training. And there's simple hand placements, leg placements and stuff that adjust things so your body's actually using the right muscles. So that's where that all plays into effect.
Sure, absolutely. So if we're going to guide the people step by step toward exercise, and I know how important, and you always talk and promote the idea of warming up. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Yes, sir.
So tell us some idea about the warm up, and then show us what is the best way to do it.
Awesome. Well, actually, if we can go over here.
Sure.
We have Megan. We're going to get her up on the treadmill. The first thing we usually have her do is when we come into the place, we have her warm up. And the reason why we do that, a lot of times, even with the stretching, which is so important, trainers and also people go right into the stretching. Well, what happens is your muscles are actually tight during certain things you're doing. Say you rolled in the car, so you have certain muscle activity that's tightened in stressed areas, as we talked about before.
Sure.
Well, if you go straight into a stretching area, you're going to get some of that, but you're going to get a lot of it in the joints.
I see.
So what we like to do is we like to warm them up on a cardio machine for about 5 minutes, and then we'll go and stretch them. Or that would be a great time for yourself to go and stretch afterwards. But I would suggest 5 to 10 minutes on a cardio machine, so you're getting activity, blood flow through the body before you start into your stretching.
What is the speed for warm up? I mean,
you know, you could do a walk to a fast-paced walk and you get plenty of activity through it. So it's not so much as an endurance thing, it's more for you just to get the blood flow through the body.
would you show us how to do that?
Awesome. They always come with a quick start, so it's really easy for everyone. Simple, and like I said, a lot of times if they feel generalized to just jump on it and start in a slow jog interval, it's very safe because she's been working out now, so it's not. For someone of the elderly age or someone who hasn't been working out, I would say at first you start off with a real slow-paced walk.
Okay, so because that's what I know, I thought warm-up is always a slow base, so it's not the case. You can warm up with a slow jogging.
It's slow jog, but now if you went into a faster run, then it would be doing the same thing we talked about, like jumping into the weights before and everything.
I see. Yeah. Now, other than the treadmill, which is a cardio technically to warm up, if there's any other warm-up you can use, like biking?
Rowing machines, bike machine, ellipticals, everything.
So any available one where the people can do it and start with it to warm up, it's a good idea. It's not necessarily just the treadmill.
Just creating the blood flow through the body.
And again, you said 5 to 10 minutes is the least amount probably to warm up.
Perfect for a warm up, and then we could go into the stretching.
If there's any difference for the length of time between men and women?
No.
There's not?
Nope.
What about young and old?
Same.
The same. So all of them technically they have to do it for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep, 5 to 10 minutes.
Perfect. Yes, now, the other thing after the treadmill, after the warm-up, we want to go into exercise. And you suggested in that case to go into strengthening exercise.
The first thing we would do, yes, we would go into a stretching period, okay? So after the warm-up, then we would take them into a stretching period. We either go into the room and stretch them, or we go over on the turf And we have some simple movements that we can show for people to do on their
Sure,
own.
absolutely. We want, because really that's what the people missing is to see how to do these kind of stuff.
Megan, you want to come over here? You're going to lay down on the floor. So first I'm going to show you with a two-man or two-person stretch. Leg down. So we're going to take this leg. You're basically just going into a bent position. Now that she has the blood flow and everything else, she's not going to feel as much stress in her joints and everything as she normally would just by walking in off the street.
Sure.
With yourself, what you can do too is we have bands, so you can hook bands around and do the same thing. So you're pulling on yourself and doing the stretch on your own. So side to side, then we usually go into a straight leg. And this is what we would do before we would attack the leg. So if we were going to do the lower half, or if we were going to do any endurance training and stuff, then we would stretch her in her lower body.
Okay.
All right. Let me show you some upper body stuff.
If there's any other type of stretch which the people can do at home, simpler stretch.
Simpler stretch?
Yep.
Yeah, anytime. Anytime a stretch is a stretch. And I even work with a lot of athletes that are extremely tight. So people always say, oh, I'm just really tight, so that's a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the muscle activity has been that way their whole life, the elasticity in it. So you could do a simple stretch. You could put your leg up on something and stretch and everything else. You're gonna feel that all through there, the same thing as you would if somebody's doing it down on the floor, okay? So there's plenty of stretches you could do. Upper body you can grab, you can lean out. You're going into this, you're gonna find out this is one a lot of times people will go, wow, they didn't even realize how tight you are through your lats and all the area and stuff.
Can you
like
do
that.
both arms?
You can do both arms, you can do reverse. So you can always use a leverage item to do something in your house, even like a chair. So you're stretching down. Anything like that, Doc, is gonna open up all the muscle valleys, and that's gonna help you from injury.
How long they supposed to do this, right?
I'd say about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So technically
minutes.
now we're talking 5 to 10 minutes of warming up, 5 minutes of stretching.
Yep.
And then we move to the real exercise, I assume.
Yep, then we go into the strength training as you were talking about before.
Let's go.
Come on over.
Looks like we are learning a lot today. I learned from the last episode, which we did the training, that I didn't want to be the subject of that training.
So we're gonna have her do a lat pull, simple movement. This is a really good one for a lot of people to start off with. The reason being, this helps you with your injury in your shoulders, because the activity a lot of people you see is very common on people. They're very front delt dominant. She has really brought back her shoulders drastically in the last couple months. But over time, everything is in front of us. And if you notice, a lot of people will be quad dominant and they're standing in their hip. Well, that's the muscle activity we're talking about. So what happens is we work on the posterior chain, but this also is a great warm up to keep you from getting injured in the other parts of the gym.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna grab on to the bottom for me. You're gonna slide back in the seat just a little bit. We're gonna lean in. With her leaning in, that's gonna bring it up into her rear delts, also into her lats, okay? So all the way back, big squeeze, good. Now, one great thing about working with Megan is because she's already done this, and she knows that she's looking for the muscle activity through the whole movement. Now, if you will speed it up and just go fast for a minute, a lot of people do this. This is wrong. All you're basically doing is moving the weight a little bit, so you're doing a little bit, but this is where you get more of a chance, this is where you get more of a chance of injury, and you're also not gonna get the results that you'd be looking for.
So it's better to do it in slow motion.
Yeah, not overly slow, but it's you connecting. It's more you trying to connect to every movement you're doing in the gym instead of just moving the weights.
I see.
Yeah.
So how much weight the person should put for when they're doing this kind of...
At first, even no matter who you are, even people who are, way advanced in the weight training and everything else, you always start off light. Even the guys that I see all the time that have been doing it for years and years and years, they come in and they try to throw some heavy weight on there. Before you know it, they're coming to me and talking to me on what type of injury they have. And
now I want to be more specific. What do you mean by light? 15 pounds, 20
5,
pounds?
10 pounds,
5, 10 pounds.
So it's basically moving the muscles.
Okay, that's making the big difference because some people think lightweight is 50 pounds.
You're right, Doc.
So we want to be very clear. So 10 pounds is probably a reasonable number.
Definitely, yes sir.
Excellent. What's the next?
Awesome. So we'll come over here, we'll just show some different movements where it's very common that are used incorrectly in the gym. So we're gonna have her do a chest press. We're gonna grab the top ones, okay? If you notice with her too, her arms come back at the direct movement of the handles. That way we're not putting any stress in the shoulder, everything's straight back, it's all staying in her chest. Also, when you see her get to the top of the movement, she's locking her shoulders out. So if you will, push it all the way to the top for me. So with that being front delt dominant, as we talked about before, you're loading your front delt, which is taking everything out of the chest, which is really what we're trying to work in the first place. So now it changes the whole movement, okay? All the way back, chest up, and drive. And if you notice, she's controlling it all the way through. Wrists are straight, everything. So if you bend your wrist, it's firing your forearm into your front delt, so it changes the movement again. Got it. Awesome. So now here's where I would go into this too. So say we warmed her up a little bit too. This is another great time for you to stretch one more time during the workout. Okay. Once you've created a little bit more blood flow, this is a good time to open up the muscles and do it again. And then I wouldn't stretch anymore through the rest of the workout because you're wanting to fill it up with blood and oxygen and water anyway and
perfect.
Create the muscle activity.
Okay.
Toning, tightening, everything at that point.
Excellent. Next, what's the next step?
Awesome. Come on over here, we'll show you some weights. We're gonna have her do a lateral raise. So if you notice right now, we got her in the standing up position. We want her to stick her butt back a little bit, knees bent. All of a sudden, now we took all the stress off of her spine, which also takes the whole different load, which is gonna cause her to use it different at the top of the movement. Again, it's great to use her because her form is picture perfect. All the way down. A lot of people, if you bend your elbows for me a little bit, come up. A lot of people do this because of the front delt part, you know. In fact, she did when we first started. But if you notice her movement through the pattern, she's using everything right there. So once you engage the lats too into this, it takes away all the chances of the injury in the shoulder. Also causes you to use that rear delt scapula trap area. All the way up, squeeze right there, down. Another one, this is the same thing as anything. You see people, all they're doing is cheating weight up. They're just trying to get it up, Doc. So
and that's, again, it's about 5 pounds I see that she's doing. That's very acceptable.
Yes, sir.
It's good.
In fact, it's funny, you know, even all the athletes that I train for Toledo and everyone else, they laugh because if I give them a 5-pound weight, they're scared. That means I'm gonna isolate like crazy. And that's the whole point of it. You can use lightweight and isolate what you're doing and get a lot more out of it. It's mind-body connection.
That's great. And for how long to do this kind of exercise? How long they should do?
You need to spend about 30 minutes on your workout. So a lot of times we'll have Megan come in about 10 minutes early so she can do her warm up and everything, and then we go into our workout. But you need at least 30 to 45 minutes in your workout. You can get a great workout in 30 minutes. Doc.
Okay, okay, perfect.
For those people who are time crunch.
Absolutely. Okay, after this kind of exercise and she's already doing strength, I mean, what's next?
So this is where we started incorporating. Like let's say we were going through a leg workout with me, or we were actually even going through an upper body movement. Then you can start throwing in your endurance movements. So you're gonna grab, we're gonna go 1 foot up and over, squat down, put 1 foot on, nope, jump up and over. Now you see me holding her hands, and the reason why, if I don't, a lot of the pressure is gonna go in the front of her knee. I'm keeping her to load into the muscle, good, rest, instead of her going into the joint area.
And if they don't have someone to help them to do that, what is the best way to do it?
So then what you would do with that, Doc, is the whole point is to go maybe even a lower step so you're not going forward above your knee or else. And then you're staying at a lower step and you can stay into your glute and everything else. But the first thing I would say, even if you don't have a trainer, come get one of the guys so they can show you what you're doing first so you're not doing it incorrectly and just trying to get something done.
Perfect. And how long, the same thing, it's about a few minutes they should do that?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll go back and forth because what happens is whenever you start squeezing and isolating, all of a sudden your heart has to push everything over there. So you find people that are 5 to 10 minutes in and go, man, I'm sweating, and we've done no endurance. The reason why, when you start squeezing, it raises your heart rate like crazy instead of just moving the weights. So then when you're doing the endurance training back and forth, this is a real cardio workout.
Perfect. So in that case, after she did this kind of
we'd go back to another deep tissue isolation, and then we come back and do another a different type of cardio workout, so like a HIIT training.
You want to go, guys, and do some kind of, what about, let's assume we did that, and we're going to do the next type of exercise, your advice?
Now this is a great example. This is one in the gym that a lot of people are afraid of, or they think it's something that they can't actually do, Doc. So what happens is once you do some strength training and you've got them to an activity point to where you can bring them to this works everything. So it's awesome for your heart rate, everything, but also glutes, hamstrings, everything, lower back, the problems with a lot of people high glute is really
Perfect.
a weak spot. So this is isolating a lot of that. Biggest thing is you'll see with her knee placement, so we're not running, she's bringing her knees straight forward, driving through, pushing all the way through the movement. So form is just huge in everything you do with the gym. It's more so people get caught up in just coming in and doing activity instead of doing the correct form.
And how many times the individual, if they are now trained and getting to the point which is they are experienced, how many times they should do this type of exercise?
A lot of times we'll have her push the sled 3 times.
3 times.
Yep. A lot of times we'll have her push the sled in between stuff 3 times, 3 to 5 times.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically anyone can do that.
So once we get them a little strong and they're activating the right thing, yes, anyone can do it.
So it's not,
even at an
it's
elder
not
age,
supposed to be done as a first line of
right,
exercise.
no, not at first.
Always you need
just
someone to guide you. Okay.
Yep,
Perfect.
just the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like graduating through things. Instead of graduating because you want to do it, it's graduating because your body's ready to move to the next level.
Perfect. Now you answered me earlier by asking you for how long everyone should have exercise, and you suggested about 30 minutes to 45 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And that's doing different kind of exercise. Is that the same between the younger people and the older people? Because older people, they have their own limitation.
Yes, sir.
From arthritis to the heart problems to all of that. So, I mean, so what is the best way to guide elderly patient to exercise?
Well, at first, you get the body moving. And,
Sure.
and a lot of times when I start with elderly people or even people whenever they're coming off injury,
Okay.
it's more of activation. So you're talking about it could be 10 to 15 minutes for an
Okay.
elderly person that they're actually doing the weighted movements or the body weighted movements just to activate it at first, but you want to gradually work them up to about 20 or 30 minutes for the elderly people.
Perfect. And how many times a week is the best way exercise? Now we tell most of the people at least 3 times a week.
Yes, sir. I always say 2 to 3 times a week is a mandatory.
Okay.
So it creates a habit and
Okay.
your body's starving for it and you want more of it.
But there is no harm to do more.
No, sir. In fact, a lot of times once you see results and you're doing it correctly and everything else, people who tell me that they can usually come in once or twice a week become 5 times a week, 6 times a week because they're seeing results, they're feeling great, and they realize that this is something they can actually do, Doc.
Now, I see you emphasizing on the point to prevent injuries. And that means probably using experts like you or private trainers. I mean, it's definitely helpful to avoid that kind of injury, especially at the beginning when you're starting that kind of exercise.
Yes,
So
sir.
how important to do that? How important for everyone to start asking some expert around them probably to guide them to start exercise?
I say this all the time. I think it's the best money you could spend. And it doesn't necessarily that means that you always have to have a trainer. Just to learn it right so that you are hooked to, you realize that this is something you can do and that, you know, it's not just your body or made for someone else, Doc.
Sure.
So if you have someone professionally showing you how to do it so you're actually feeling great immediately, you're going to stick with it.
What is the most important message you want to give to the people about safety measure when they are starting exercise?
Well, the biggest thing is the start, you know, and everybody's intimidated by it or they think that they can't do it because they're too far along or they're in a bad place in their life.
Absolutely.
Exercise is the best thing in the world for them, Doc, but they want to start off real basic.
Sure.
It's more about just getting moving and starting things and doing it and not worrying about how much weight you lift or how much the person beside you lifts. It's just coming through and learning it and doing it the right way.
And we always tell the people that even if you are on the walker, even if you are using a cane,
Sure.
you still can exercise. You still can improve your endurance and try to improve your exercise level and move around. And you start step by step. Even if you start for 2-3 minutes the first time, after a few weeks you will be able to do it for 10 minutes and probably after a few months you will do it for half an hour. I assume this is what you think and you promote?
I'm big on that, and I'm smiling because it's so important. A lot of people don't realize the less you do, the less you're going to be able to do.
Sure.
And once you start actually doing things, you're gonna find out that you can actually do a lot more than you thought you could because you're activating muscles again.
Everybody is more than
All
one.
ages. We work with kids from speed and agility to strength training to everything you can imagine to adults and elderly.
Which is, bring me, you mentioned the word kids. I want to talk about kids and how important to exercise. Tell us how important for the kids to exercise, not only to play soccer or to play basketball. I'm talking about real exercise.
It's huge, and over time you see it worse and worse with kids because of obesity and what's going on in the world. Activity has become less and less because of games, and we all know that, but
Sure.
it's always going to be a part of our life because it's there now. teaching your kids at an early age, it's kind of like breaking all the bad habits. You're teaching them to actually use muscle activity that will cause worse problems in the future because of all the sitting around and everything now too. So educate them on training or doing movement patterns, or, you know, like my kids. My kid's 7 years old. I don't do any workout wise when it comes to weights, but we do all kinds of body weight movements and endurance stuff and speed stuff, and she's way above other people.
What is the best time to start that type of exercise?
Oh, I'd start with your kids at 5 and above.
5 and above.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Great, great. That's really important. Thank you very much, Keith.
Oh, my pleasure.
It was
Thank you,
wonderful experience, and
you.
it was great to learn a lot today about exercise, and I hope everyone will be exercising starting now.
Awesome.
We covered a lot of information today. Hopefully, you understand the exercise is good for almost everyone. Yes, there are many things that can get in the way or staying active, but it's time for some positive thinking. Again, no more excuses. If it's difficult for you to find the time to exercise, do it first thing in the morning after you stretch. Maybe it costs you not having a cup of coffee before you leave the house, but the exercise is more worth it. Once you have found routine or program, stick to it. Make sure your routine consists of variety and sets you're comfortable with. Don't exert yourself too hard. Gym like Fitness for All here are excellent to get into because they have all the equipment you need to get a proper workout. But being on a budget might keep you out of such a place. Not an excuse. You don't have to spend a dime to get a good workout. If you have a pair of comfortable, non-skid shoes, then take a walk around the neighborhood. Find objects you can lift in your home for some weight training. Go online to see if our parks have any exercise program you can participate in. It might feel draining at first, but regular exercise and movement will actually increase your energy, making you feel less fatigued and even less stressed. And of course, it will brighten your mood, making you feel well physically and emotionally. Why aren't you working out regularly? This is the end of our program, so now is a great time to shut off the TV and get out there, because time waits for no one.